I want to talk about that moment because going into that fight at the weigh-ins, there was something that was going on behind the scenes in your life, something very tragic that a lot of people, not even your team, knew about. And so you knocked out your opponent, and then you explained to us what was going on in your life. Can you tell us about that situation?
Yeah, so my father had passed away, and it was kind of like going through training and work and so forth. You kind of don't get time to really process. I'm not embarrassed, it's like I mean, it was a very sad moment, but it was almost like at that point you kind of realize like just you have relief, you have sadness, you have grief in your heart, and it's just like you just have to kind of like you just have to kind of like let it go. And it was it was a tough week. It was a very rough week, and it was just a rough time kind of going through it. But you kind of learn you have to have some emotional resiliency, especially like in the world of sports. Um, you learn that not everything's going to go your way. Things are going to happen. Curveballs and segues are going to happen. However, you have to be able to have the resiliency to understand. Like I knew that my dad would have, if I said, "Hey, like I don't want to, fight," my dad probably would have been like, he would have looked at me and been like, "What the heck is wrong with you? Like, don't fight.
Mm-hmm.
You don't do
Yeah.
that. We see things through to the end, no matter what the
Oh,
result is.
wow.
We see things through to the end. That's a given. You say like if you're a man of your word. If you say you're gonna do something, do it. Like don't do
Right.
it halfway. Don't stay halfway. Don't make excuses for yourself. Don't let people make excuses for you because that's what you have to live by. Because at the end of the day, like even if you say it's okay, I still have to live with the guilt of like, no man, people train me. They put this much time into me. Like my teammates came up when they didn't have to come up and they helped me out, and then all of a sudden at the last minute I let them down. And it's like,
Right.
nah, what's that? I mean, I was going through some stuff, but at the same time, like, everybody's going through some stuff as well. If we have a task at hand, we have to finish the task at hand. And it doesn't mean that you're taken away from whatever situation is going on in your life. It
Mm-hmm.
means anything, you're giving that situation a lot more respect because you're saying, like, hey, I am going to put my feelings aside and go out there and still work hard like the way that you would want me to be. Like,
Mm.
thinking about what would my pop say in that situation.
Well, definitely it showed after you secured the victory. It showed. I've known you just through MMA, and I could tell something was off. Something wasn't, something was a little not there. When I put the mic to you and we talked about the victory, the tears came back. You couldn't. It was almost like a relief. A release was finally off your shoulders, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you can almost say, "Dad, thank you. Thank you for pushing me through this week." So that was more about you and your dad than it was the victory that took place.
And I think I think that really was the thing. It was like a relief,
Yeah.
and just being able to kind of like just like at that moment, just have the time to kind of process that moment, process like
Right.
what happened with my father and stuff. I think that was the best thing, especially like I had a pretty tough opponent in Chris Barber. Like the background that he came from, the dude he was a small fella, man. That's
Yeah.
a pretty big guy, like so it's like I had to make sure that my mind was right going into that,
Hmm.
and then after that, whatever was going on behind the scenes in terms of just like my life and so forth, I could just process it at that moment.
When I told, and when we started this, the sphere of influence in our circles around us. You know a lot of people, and a lot of people know you, but I'm imagining that you keep your circle very small as far as the influences and the advice that come in. Your team didn't know that your dad had passed. They were just as shocked because I looked at them and they would have done anything. They go anywhere that you need them to go in the gym, outside the gym. and I mean that they have a compassionate heart for you. Um, After the fight was over, and you guys walked back to the locker room, did Shane, did your team, did they say anything to you?
Yeah, Shane was like, he said, hey man, next time anything like that happens, you don't tell me, man. I'm gonna have to slap you upside the head, man. You need to let us know what's going on in your life, you know? And
Yeah.
you know, my reply to that was just like, you know, like, hey, you know, it was everything happened so quickly, I couldn't even process it. I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't even process it neither. And you know, we have to understand, like, you know, in terms of coming back to the circle and stuff. Um, if you got like a crew who understands what it takes and what you are doing to get somewhere
Mm-hmm.
and so forth, like you have to, you know, respect their time. And you know, I always say I'm a very big believer in that, you know, like Bible quotes and iron sharpens iron. You know,
Yes.
my crew is always, I want a crew around me that's always going to challenge me to be
Mm-hmm.
better. And I don't want to be the best in my crew. If you're the toughest in your crew, if you're the toughest in your crew, you need to find a new crew. That crew,
Right.
when
Yep.
you die out, the culture dies out. Because if everybody's looking for you to be the best and, you know, protect them when they need it, then when you're gone, that means that whole civilization dies.
Yep.
So toughest in your crew, if you've got a crew of tough people and everybody's always competing to be the best, everybody's always competing to make each other better. With one, if one link dies out, that chain is still going to be strong. So
Right.
you have to, you know, make sure that you have the toughest in your crew. And you know, with them, when we always get into training and so forth, we always get like kind of lost in the moment, like in terms of we
Okay.
in like, you know, the hard work and so forth. So it's never a thing of like, you know, hey man, like my pops had died, because it's like you're so focused on what the task is at hand that, you know, you kind of put everything else to the side and you're just like, hey, let's get this work done. Let's no messing about. We have business to attend to, and that was pretty much how that week and that the 6 weeks leading up to the fight were, you know. And I think it wasn't a case of me like, you know, kind of like not wanting to tell them. It was,
Mm-hmm.
we just had a different focus, a different mentality, and we were just in a different phase of like, hey, we need to get this. We have a mission, and the mission is to win this fight and win this fight, you know, clean, you know.
Now, when you the way you're speaking about, we have a mission at hand, we have a task at hand. It almost sounds like your dad. It's almost like those are the words of your dad coming through you, a seed that was planted in Henry, your father. Two things: he was not only a chief in Ghana, but him and his brother, your uncle, they both played professional soccer
Mm-hmm.
in Ghana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were both professional soccer players, and I mean, it was kind of, I mean, me and my dad, like, I guess our relationship was a little bit
Mm-hmm.
strange, just because he didn't like live with us. Like, you know,
Yeah.
he left home when I was really young, and so, you know, there's a lot of things to kind of process with understanding. Like, you know, hey, like, you know, I was predominantly living with my mother, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, he was still around. Like, you know, he would send us tapes every so often, like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
recordings of, like, you know, just telling us how much he loved us. And
That's awesome.
you know, he would come and visit every so often and so forth. But we understood that, you know, hey, he had duties to attend to. Like,
Right.
like, you know, when you're the chief, it's just come to the territory.
Mm-hmm.
And but at the same time, it was like, you know, I understood that when you're kind of like an important figure to a lot of people, like he was, you know, it's one of those things where you kind of realize that I might feel a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
I have to put that second to what is going on around me.
Mm-hmm.
So like I tell people, like, you know, for instance, I leave my, like, if I'm having a bad day at work or training or whatever, I leave that outside in work or training. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
gonna come home and bring that to my family, because
Right.
guess what? It wasn't their fault. So they don't deserve to, you know, be involved in it. So I'm not gonna come home, be in a stroppy mood, you know, like just give them bad attitude. I'm gonna come, even if I'm having bad attitude, put on a brave face, smile, and eventually I'm gonna believe in that positivity, because, you know, that's my crew, and they,
Right.
you know, whatever I'm feeling comes second. They come first, you know. And my mission when I get home is to be with my family and enjoy my time at home. That's my mission. That's nothing else. That's my mission when I'm at home. When I'm in the wrestling, my mission is to be the best wrestler I can be. When I'm in the MMA, My mission is to be the best MMA fighter I can be. When I'm
Mm-hmm.
in gym, my mission is to try and survive. So
Yeah.
it's so it's like it's one of those things where if you kind of realize that you you have to leave that ego alone, like
Mm-hmm.
stop thinking about yourself so much in those situations and start thinking about the task at hand and like what the task means. Like, like what does it mean? Like, if you win this fight, what does it mean? If you lose this,
Mm-hmm.
what does it mean? Like you have to establish those things. It makes it easier for you to actually be able to put your best foot forward because not everybody's gonna understand what you're doing. Not everybody's gonna understand what you want to do. Yeah, there might be people who like said like, like for instance, I could be fighting and my friend needed me at a funeral and but I have to explain that to them, like like, hey,
Right.
I'm not there because I'm not there because I don't want to be there. I'm there because I had a different task at hand. But guess what? When I see you the next time, you are going to be the focus of everything that my whole attention is going to be focused on that.
Right.
And again, that's I could be prideful and say to them like, hey man, look, I had a fight. Like you need to understand, and but the thing is,
Yeah.
that person is grieving, so you have to understand their grief, and then you can go and tell them what you need to tell them. Because if you're thinking about yourself and you get offended by that, you're not being a very good friend.
Right. And so it sounds like you have so much experience in not only receiving advice, but passing that advice that you've received to others that are going into like a multitude of situations. Because like we spoke earlier off camera, um, we were talking about the what is that? Not the split personality, but the double life identity, kind of like the Clark Kent and the Superman. You know, um, everybody sees the Clark Kent. He's flying through this. He's doing great feats. He's you're wrestling, you're fighting, um, you're at work as a technology director. But then when you come home, you have to pull back some of those layers and be home. Um, and we were talking about the conversations that you have with people because we're all of our conversations are changing
Mm-hmm.
on how we receive and we talk about information. Turn the TV off, walk out the front door, and get into some reality.
Mm-hmm. I think like that's the main thing, like and I think because I get along with like different circles of people, like people look at my like the circle of people I get on with, and they're kind of like, dude, like why like how does this even work out that you guys are friends and so forth, and it's like
Right.
took time to get to understand this person, and then this person in turn took time to get to understand me, and I think that's where you kind of like build different relationships because the thing is you can't like say to yourself, hey, like this person I have to live by this mold because this is what
Mm-hmm.
my people do. It's like you have to kind of like understand that hey, we are all citizens of the world, no matter what segment we're kind of lumped into. And if you're a citizen of the world, you have to understand that you have to respect everybody's spaces, and the best way to respect everybody's space is to understand who's in your space.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to get to know those people. And you know what? It's not going to say that everybody's going to agree. No one's like sometimes you aren't going to.
Right.
However, you have to still respect like where that person's coming from, the same way they have to respect where you're coming from. And then with the alter ego life, there's a concept in computer science, and me being a computer scientist, like
Mm-hmm.
something how I process logic, which is called abstraction. So abstraction basically is the process of giving views to the different users without
Mm-hmm.
them being able to touch what the underlying system is. So that way, like they're only accessing certain parts of the system, but the parts that you want them to access. So, obviously in the MMA realm and the wrestling realm, I give the fans what I want the fans to access. And that's like, the character of the summit. And then, Yaw Jason will say the MMA fighter. If I
Mm-hmm.
don't if I don't know the fans on a personal level, they don't really need to know about my, my personal life or
Right.
what's going on at home and stuff. It's not saying that I don't want them to, but it's to say like, at the end of the day, my personal life isn't my own. My personal,
Right.
it's my personal life, but my friends and my family and so forth, those they are all shareholders in that. And if I haven't spoken to the shareholders about how they
That's a good
can,
way to put it.
that's what you have to think of it. Like it's like everybody's, you might think of it as yours, but if you got
Right.
shareholders and people that that share your time,
Oh,
you have to be part of the conversation. Like, hey, like, like, do you mind if I talk to the fans about you? And if
Mm-hmm.
parents if they don't want you to talk to the parents about them, you have to respect that because guess what?
Right.
They're part of that business. And so, you know, I don't do anything like that without having those conversations with my friends and family and so forth. And so you have to provide those kind of abstractions. So then that way, number one, you're protecting yourself, but you're
Mm-hmm.
protecting those around you. Like, you know, the way that superheroes have alter egos, the only reason why they have alter egos is so that way they're protecting those around them. Because Peter Parker didn't want people to know he had an Aunt May, Mary Jane Parker, because guess what?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to attack Peter Parker at that point, go and attack those two people, you know?
Yep.
And that's why you have to kind of like, you know, have that level of abstraction.
Right on. All right. You know, Jason, I tell you, it's always intriguing talking to you because I think it's going to go one way and the conversation goes completely different. And I'm learning. And not only am I, but hopefully the fans are learning also. You know, the audience is learning about how to apply, hard work, discipline, sacrifice, respect. You may not agree, but you respect. And then how you balance that out, how you have a conversation. So I'm glad that we had a chance to talk about that. And I'm really glad that we had a chance to talk about your dad, your father, who he was and who he is through you today. Because I think that we get a chance to know who he is in certain parts of your conversation. Even though I never met Henry, I feel like I get a chance to know a little bit more about him now, listening to your personality.
And, you know, I think, you know, just the way, my brothers, my brother, my sister, like, you know, my half siblings and so forth, just the way that we turned out and like, you know, just to kind of drive forward that we have, each of us, it's just a testament to, you know, just, you know, what an influence he was as a man. And, you know, I think that just kind of is the lesson of, you know, to everybody, you don't know who's watching you out there. You don't know who's using you as a framework. And you have to understand that whatever you put out there is what people are gonna, you know, understand about you. So if you, with that being known, just kind of be mindful about, you know, how you kind of carry yourself because, you know, there might be someone who's following your example and you want the best for them. So make sure you want the best for yourself as well.
Well, you know, I love how you put that. Look who's watching you because you never know what your influences, how your influences might influence somebody else when you don't even know.